from Ackland Avenue, and we're going to have a session right now on more valuable UIs. I'm going to be joined in just a minute with Carlos Fontecha, and we're going to tag team this session just a little bit. So I just want to introduce the topic. When we think about valuable code, we think about code that is high quality and that does what's expected, and then that is a pleasant experience to developers, not just today, but also in 6 months. That's to me what quality code is, or valuable code. Code for our clients might mean that it just does what is expected, and maybe that it doesn't cost them twice as much in 6 months to come back and maintain. But then on the other side, what about the UI? What about the user experience? How can we make more valuable user experiences for our clients? And so Carlos and I got together and we came up with some ideas, and we're just going to share them with you. We also have a UI or UX UI cheat sheet, which you can find at github.com/Ackland Avenue, and just search for cheat sheet, and you'll see this one and whatever other cheat sheets we have. So I'm just going to start with the first statement here, and this is just a definition of a valuable UI, or what it should do. A valuable UI should constantly and pleasantly answer the question, what do I do next? That's really the question that we always have to answer in our UIs, is we have to help the user understand what's next. Where do I start? What am I supposed to do? A lot of times, if we just kind of if we just throw some functionality on a screen, we might not always give enough information to the user to help them understand what to do next. So that's one reason why we wanted to have this session, so that we can kind of all get on the same page about what we can do to improve those UIs and that user experience and make it more valuable, and to help the user understand what to do next. So let's just talk about a few general UX tweaks. Start with the idea of a non-distracting, pleasant feel. So what do I mean by non-distracting? Non-distracting is like, people say a low rate of WTFs per second or per minute. We apply that rule to our code. We don't want a lot of WTFs in our code when developers are looking at our code. Well, the same thing would go for our UIs. We don't want the client or a user to look at one of our UIs and say, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do here. I've got all this stuff on the screen. There's buttons. I have no clue what to do. So some things that can help to answer that question, what to do next, and it's not distracting and it's pleasant, is we can help with alignment. We can really do a lot for the user by making things aligned horizontally and aligned vertically. If something is like, especially if you imagine a table of data should always be aligned horizontal or vertically, and then horizontally. If you're looking at a number column, this is just kind of like a rule of thumb. If you're looking at a number column, that number should almost always be which justified, right or left. Any ideas? A number column, what should it be, left or right justified? Right justified. I agree with you. Totally agree with you. There are some examples when you might want to center it, and if it really makes sense, then you can do left. But as a rule of thumb, a number column should almost always be right justified. Why is that? You got to think about the user experience. What does a number mean, and what does it mean when it's left justified versus right justified? Well, if we're talking about money, then the longer the number goes out from right to left, the more valuable that number is, the more money we're talking about. So you want to guide the user's eyes to the quickest understanding of the meaning of the data in that table. So that's alignment vertically, but then horizontally too. If we're talking about form inputs, user is going along in a form. You've got possibly a wrong way to do this would maybe be a label that's over one field, and then you go to the next field, and the label is to the left of the field. Well, really, it'd be better if those input fields were on the same visual horizontal plane. So that just means put the label on the top on both of them, or put it to the right or the left on both of them. So keeping things in alignment really helps the user get to what they're trying to do next. It helps them understand what to do next. Breathing room is another one. I see a lot of times in UIs, not just ours, but we have a severe lack of breathing room in general in some of our more poor designed user experiences across the web, not just us. So the idea of breathing room is you've got maybe 10 elements on your screen. If you have them all like together, all in one big row or one clump, and they're really close together, then they start to compete. They start to clash. It's hard to know where one ends and where one starts. And so a better UI for that, or a better user experience, is to give each element some breathing room. This also goes for form inputs. You've got a form input for name, first and last name. A better user experience would be to have the first name field separated by 10, 20 pixels, then do the last name. Maybe they shouldn't be like just butted up against each other. Same thing would go for a button after a form field. Maybe it should be right there next to the button or next to the form field, but most times it needs a little bit of breathing room. Give that element an extra 10 or 15, 20 pixels of breathing room, just so that the user can understand that this is a separate thing from this. Consistent colors. Most websites, most applications, even desktop applications or mobile applications, should have between 2 or 3, maybe 4 principal colors that it's going to be using. And if you haven't been given a style guide for the application and you're having to make these decisions, try to keep your number of colors down to 2 or 3. Consistent fonts. Almost never more than one font in any application. We need to pick one font and use it throughout the entire application. That will help reduce the number of distractions that the user has. Dialogues, and we usually use default fonts, but yeah, we're not really interested in fonts. We don't care too much about which fonts we're using. Maybe the user should dictate to us which font we're going to use. If they don't know, then we can pick one that looks nice to us. Dialogues and pop-ups. All right, so dialogues and pop-ups present the largest opportunity for distraction to me than any other web element or any other visual element we can pick. Modals, blocking alerts, and unobtrusive alerts. If they don't fit in the UI or the style of the rest of the site, maybe we're using a library or whatever for notification alerts. I can think of, there's Alertify. Alertify is one. That is, Toaster is another. And then there are some that come with like Bootstrap or Foundation. If we're using, for instance, Foundation, we're using one template with Foundation on a website, and then we throw in Alertify and we don't go in and modify the style of this Alertify dialog box. The default look and feel for Alertify is way over there in the corner, and the default look and feel for Foundation is way over in the other corner. They're completely different. And if you apply that default Alertify, or default Toaster even sometimes, and the default Foundation or Bootstrap, they look completely different, and it's super, super distracting. It might be still delivering the information, but we're trying to do more than just deliver the information. We're trying to do it in such a way that helps the user to understand what they're supposed to do next, and also in a pleasant and non-distracting way. And about those alerts, how about if we just default to unobtrusive alerts? If the user doesn't have to respond, or if you don't have to stop the user from doing something else, Why not just give an unobtrusive alert? Something that pops up like Toast when we're in Trello or Slack and you get a notification, it pops up in one of your corners, right, in your desktop. And if you don't do anything, it just disappears on its own. That's called an unobtrusive alert. I don't need to click an OK button every time Slack sends me a message. That would get on my nerves. So I like the thing that just appears for a couple seconds and then goes away. That's great. That's an unobtrusive alert, and it's very, very helpful. And in most cases, I would say that we can use those unobtrusive alerts. We don't have to use blocking alerts every single time. Eye guiding animations. This is something that we really need to grow in, but I think that it's really kind of low-hanging fruit. I don't think that it's going to be hard for us to implement this in any project, even starting Monday. When you click on a link, obviously it's going to change somehow what the user is seeing. Maybe it goes from one page to another page. Right now, what happens most of the time is it just flashes to the other view. Well, what if we were to do what's very popular in Durandal, where we have a little bit of a half a second animation that gives that user some transition. Well, for me as a normal user, what I'm going to think is, oh, okay, something happened. I'm not going to have to go back up and click that button again because I just saw that something happened. I get some feedback from my action, more than just a big quick switch. This is especially helpful if page 1 and page 2 are kind of similar, because if they're really similar, then I might not notice that the new content has loaded. So a transition between when we click transition to guide the user's eyes to the new content, good stuff. Attention getters is the same thing. Sometimes for instance, we might have a validation error. Well, the user needs to see somehow that validation error. We need to somehow get the user's attention about that validation error so they can know what to do next. So we either need to scroll up to that validation error, or if it's already on the screen, we might need to do a little wiggle animation, or maybe make the box like go big and then back to normal size. I'm not sure, but the idea is just to come up with something that will help the user grab their attention so they know what to do next. And I'll give you a disclaimer about this stuff right here. I'm not talking about anything complicated. This should be something that we can do in 30 seconds of extra effort, or maybe 5 minutes of extra effort at tops. Because we're not trying to introduce new requirements and new cost for the user, for the client. What we're trying to do is make our default Acklin Avenue UI more valuable. And if it takes more effort on a routine basis, maybe we just need to increase our estimates so that we can be constantly making sure that our UIs are more valuable. All right, guided input flow. And I didn't format this very well, but really helping the user understand what is next might include adding a focus to an input. This happens a lot with me. So if I go to a login page, I should be able to immediately start typing my username. What would be required to actually make that happen? As a developer, what would you have to do to make the login form where I can immediately start typing my email, my username? How long would that take you? Huh? So between that or that, how long would that take? 10 seconds. Okay, so we should be doing that, right? Most of our, this is for all of us, most of our applications, we don't do that. We go to a login page, and what does the user have to do? Click. Well, why? If that's the first thing that's always going to be done, we should make it easier on the user. Another thing is tab Let's see, what was the second one? Ah, okay. Should I sing? I've got the lovely bunch of coconuts, diddly-dee, there they are standing in a row. Big one, small one, some as big as your head. Can you switch to your screen? There we go. Okay, automate the repeated. Automate the repeated. If the user is having to repeat an action a lot of times, automate it. So that kind of goes back to focusing at the beginning of a page. Automate that. Make it focused automatically for them. If it's something that is automatically going to have to happen, like we're talking about, this has been done for 20 years on the web, right? When you're typing in a phone number, you've got 3 fields maybe: area code, prefix, and we're talking about like Gringo phone numbers, right? So the 3 sections: the first area code, and the prefix, and then the suffix. Three fields. You finish typing 3 of those. What should it do? It should auto advance. It should auto advance to the next thing. And then after you type in the next 3, it should auto advance to the next one. That's a user tweak that we can make that's probably not going to take a lot of time. That's going to make that user experience even more valuable. And then the last thing that I was going to say is that just tabbing should be that's kind of a no-brainer. It really does take just 10 seconds to do a tab order on the fields, but it really does help the user a lot because a lot of users just want to use that keyboard. And then I'll pass off to Carlos to talk about the rest. And I think I stole one of Carlos's things with tabbing, but you can say more if there's anything else you mention. All right, come on up.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to continue where Byron left off. So what I basically did is I just took like about 10 real-life examples of how we can improve the UI for users. The first one was what Byron was saying, adding tab order to the fields. This is something that could probably take a minute or 2. So this is very important because users, as developers, they are lazy. They don't want to be using the mouse every time to move on to another input. So they're going to use their keyboard and use the tab input to fill a form very fast. The second one would be submitting a form and enter. This is another usual thing that users do, and they like to use their keyboard for that. So this would make their life easier. It's going to avoid them from using the mouse every time to submit something. The next thing we can do is whenever there's a request going on the site, maybe we're uploading a file or an image, it's a very good idea to block the background. So the user, it prevents the user from doing further requests, which can end up crashing the site. So we can do this by adding a loading spinner, an animation, or something similar to that.
I would add that loading spinner should fit with the look and feel of the rest of the site.
Yeah, and the size is also important as well. The next thing is it goes on with what I was just talking, informing the user of what's going on. So if they're doing a search for a flight or they want to book a room for a hotel, it's a good idea to say, hey, we're looking for the hotel of your dreams. It's not necessary to add a personalized message, but I think the user would definitely appreciate that. I think it depends on the context of what he or she is doing. The next thing is having a responsive page. This is going to depend on the type of web page, but it's always a good idea that if you're going to know that users are going to be on their phones using your site, it's always good to have in mind having a responsive page. Another thing we can do to improve user interface is avoiding too many form fields. So a lot of companies on their contact information section, they have like a lot of irrelevant fields. They ask you like for your home number, your cell phone, your beeper, all of this stuff that sometimes isn't necessary. And sometimes we can merge these fields like first name and last name to just make it like one single field. Or in the case that we do have to user for this bunch of fields, for example, maybe if we're a hospital, they don't have all this detailed information on you. What we can do is break this into steps. So maybe we could have 3 steps. And the first step would be just your first name, last name, information in your house. Moving on to the next step, maybe your health information. What diseases do you have? If you've had surgery before, and then we can move on to another step. So it's important that if we're going to have a lot of fields, let's break them. Yep. The next thing on my slide is having different ways to present alerts. Some websites, sometimes developers get lazy and they just leave the default JavaScript alert. It's always a very good idea to have a different personalized message for either when something was successful, such as uploading a file, or whether it wasn't successful, we should have a red box. So it's a good idea to have this classified by color. The next, yeah, go ahead. Cool. Cool. Yeah, Dante was saying that in Angular, there's a way to validate forms right now, so you can get the error message by not typing code. I imagine it's like default. The next thing that we can do to improve UI is avoiding unnecessary elements. Sometimes we could copy templates from previous projects, and maybe there was a social media login left, which we're not going to use. So it's always a good idea to remove these things that are unnecessary to the user. Something that's also important is remembering the form field values. Sometimes a user will come to fill in a form, and maybe they will move on to another section of the site and come back to the form, and they're going to see that there's no way to recall the information that they just inputted. So it's a neat idea to have a way that the user can just start typing in again, whether it's a query or a field, and have the system remember that for them. Another thing that I was reading about is avoiding reset buttons. I've never seen this on any of our projects, but reset buttons can be annoying for the user because imagine that they have filled a form that has about 20 fields and they accidentally click on the reset button thinking that it was the submit button. It's going to be a pain in the neck for them to have to fill in all these fields again. Aspire. So yeah, I would raise my voice again in favor of removing reset buttons, because in case the user wants to delete something, they can always do that manually. Moving on to another type of thing, whenever we have shopping carts, it would be a good idea to always make sure to include a remove button for a product that the user has accidentally added to their shopping cart. Another way that this can be done, but that to remove an item, but most users don't know, is that you can sometimes change the quantity to 0, but we're making the assumption that users are going to know how to do that. So it's better to always have a remove button that the user can use. We also need to have in mind handling common user mistakes. One of these things is when users are being asked to enter a password. If they put the caps lock on, we should have a friendly way to say this to them, because some users might have accidentally clicked the caps lock. Or we can also make the user validation for the email. Sometimes they'll write an incorrect email domain or invalid email domain. So it's always a good idea to have this in mind. And as a bonus, I added something called dark patterns. The message over here is just let's avoid being evil with our clients, with our customers. What you're seeing right now is a screenshot of a search for flights on, I think it was British Airways. So you're gonna see that the cheapest price is displayed on the left, but when you make the search, the system highlights the medium price. So that's a way of not being friendly to the user. I mean, if we have a cheaper option, we should highlight by default the cheapest option. But in this case, they want to make the user spend more money, I guess. So the lesson is avoid being evil. I also added some reading suggestions. Two important books that I think will help understand the user behavior better would be The Design of Everyday Things by Donald Norman and Steve Krug's Don't Make Me Think. Right now we're going to have a short lab, so please get into groups of 3 to 4 people. And what I want you guys to do right now is to find either a website with good UI and UX design that you can just point out to, or find a website with something that you could improve. And once you have done this, you can maybe send me a Slack message, or join the Hangout as you guys wish. So you can present either a good example of a UI or a bad example of a UI and how you could improve it. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this.
Maybe you should qualify with something current. Something current, not something from Wayback Machine. Huh? Yeah.
1 minute left, guys. Okay, guys, we're gonna start right now. What we were thinking on doing is that someone from your group is gonna join the Hangout and share the screen, and another member of the group will come onto the front to explain either the UI, the good UI design or the bad UI design. So, Sharon's group, are you ready? Okay. So make sure to join the Hangout and then send someone from your team over, please. Okay, if you guys are ready, come on over. Yeah, better. Okay. Is someone ready? Go ahead. Someone can share the screen and another team member can come on stage.
Are we doing the bad example first?
As you wish.
Okay, so we found some examples of bank websites. And no offense to the InVio team, but our example of a complicated site. Well, can you bring up the other one first, the back? So there's no clear direction on where to start or where to go if you do figure out where to start. There's a lot of information on the screen, and it's just not neat and clean. So conversely, we found a pretty good-looking bank site, which is actually my bank site in the U.S. If you want to pull that one up next, the Ascent. So this is my bank, and it's a little light, so it's hard to see, but the login is on the very top of the screen. And then it's got a clear call to action in the middle for what they're promoting currently. And then if you scroll down, there's other areas that cover additional banking information for the user. So it's pretty neat layout. And this bank used to have a really bad website, and they just recently updated it. So that's why I remembered. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, on the other page, you remember there was really no breathing room. There was just like element on top of element on the other page. So much information. But and also the view on this is smaller. If you remember on the Ascend site, we were scrolling for quite a ways, so the page itself is bigger, which allows for much more white space in each section. Is that what you're getting at, Byron? Yeah.
I noticed that there's a lot of white space, like the while about saving.
Mm-hmm.
How may we help you? There's a lot of white space.
Right. Right.
It's not white, but it's blank.
Yes, not filled with stuff. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Do we have someone else ready?
Hey guys, well, we have, for example, or for good stuff and bad stuff for the Coursera site. The good stuff about that is that when you go, for example, directly to your lectures or your videos and lectures and assignments, the good stuff is that actually you can see, for example, it's only displays the panels where you have pending stuff. The other stuff, for example, that you have already finished, is actually like compressed, so it doesn't, because you actually don't need that information. You already have passed that. So we think that it's really good practice to show the user, in this case, the students, for example, what's the pending that what they have. Other stuff that we have, for example, for the bad stuff on this website is actually, if you scroll to the bottom, and if I want to search something, I don't have any visible search option to do that. So I think we can suggest, for example, to have a search option always visible, probably in a fixed div or something in the header. And also other issue that we found is actually the menu for them is actually a sidebar. So if we are already at the bottom, as you see right now, for example, we don't have any access to any item of the menu. So probably a good idea, it could be to have like a fixed also sidebar, for example, where you can actually access immediately to any of the items of the menu to change the screen, for example, instead of avoiding scrolling and moving down or hiding stuff, for example, that are really important for the user or even the navigation of the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilo. Do we have Sharon's group ready? Okay, we have El Matador. It's the design speaker.
You have it already.
So this is the bad example that we have right now is the Rapido Cargo site, which is horrible. You can see even the logo is not set on the header. It's not like it's get out of the div. You can scroll down. You can see the colors on the map are horrible. Yellow. Who uses yellow? Can you scroll down? Yeah, it's horrible. The whole site, the layout is horrible. Like, I like Rapido Cargo because it's cheap, but the site is horrible. You can see the icons right there. They're like all cluttered together, and there's like a big white space between them. I think only the footer is like kind of the only thing that you can save. Yeah, I don't know why they have that there and they have it on the footer. Like just place it on one place. Yeah, it's a horrible site. But I recommend using Rapido Cargo. It's really awesome. That's it. A good example now. I like. It crashed the browser, the Rapido Cargo site. That's how bad it is. There. Ah. ¿Qué pasó? Ya había salido. Now, this is the best site ever on the internet. Steam, made by Valve. It's really awesome. You go inside and you will see all the filters that you can get all your games on the top left. The font is beautiful. The colors are beautiful. Everything is perfect. They use black everywhere, so it's a really constant UI. They have the carousel on the top where their biggest launches are shown, and you get the beautiful discounts at the bottom, which is everything what we all care. And yeah, it's a perfect site actually. I have no complaints about it. And I really like that they use black and they managed to make a really nice looking site just using dark scale colors. I think that's kind of hard to pull out. And you can see there they have Grand Theft Auto 5, which I bought. And maybe you can open one game if you want. Yeah, the thing about the site that they show a lot of information, but they don't clutter you, and you don't feel confused. Like they really show a lot of stuff, but you don't feel like all overwhelmed. So I think they place the information in a really nice way. And when they show a game, it's really awesome. They show the trailer, carousel there on the top, on the right, they show the little information about the game, and on the bottom you get all the reviews from the users. So it's really awesome. It's a really great site. I'm not being biased, by the way. It's a really good site. Yeah. So that's it.
Thank you, Osman. Do we have someone else? Mago? Are you in the Hangout already? Are you joining the Hangout, Lochito? Okay.
So we have a bad example of UI over here, and is HCH. Hable como habla. Yeah, that's horrible. As you can see, everything is clumped together. There's lots of information and lots of empty space. I mean, they have everything just like zipped. I don't know. And also, this is an example of obtrusive website. If you scroll down, keep keep scrolling. Yeah. Well, click any post, any news. Keep scrolling down. and they always have this video of the news that they want to show. Uh, and actually, when you click it, and this is a company, I mean, I think serious, and you click it and you get an ad on your YouTube video. So you have to click it twice if you want to see the video. So that's totally, I don't know, obtrusive. And horrible colors also. Like, I don't know, I think they see in black and white or something. So yeah, that's our bad example. We don't really have a good example, but this Steam website, it's awesome. Have to agree with Osman. And just that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I guess this concludes our session for UI and UX. Byron, I don't know if you want to add something else. Oh, okay. Aida, if you're going to show something, go ahead and start sharing your screen. We're ready for you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Let me just a second. Can you see my screen now? Dorian, can you unmute or? Okay, guys, can I start to speak or? Okay, so I think that a really bad example of a website is El Heraldo, and I think it's so bad that when you go in, they start to play all these videos in the right side. So I hate going to the page for that. And actually, I added to my ad blocker, so I don't see all these videos over there. Sometimes they have just so many information, and you can see there is everything. We have enough space between the sections. You can see just too much publicity and add-ons over there. And all the page is basically going the same way. So I think these are really, really bad design and make you that you don't want to go in. So for another example of really good websites, for example, I really like the Uber website and the Lyft website. They are both companies where you can go in from your mobile phone and you can ask for a ride. I like more Uber because you can get in. For example, on the mobile application, you can see like basically the same as a Google map, and you can see where the cars that are most close to you, and they show you which one is the closer one to you and how many minutes or how many time it will take to pick you up. So I really like this one. Sorry I couldn't show you on my mobile phone, but I hope you can see really well the image. From Lyft, it's the same service, but I have been trying to use it, but the last time I went in, I didn't like that I didn't like much. It doesn't seem like Google Maps, and you can see a lot of cars over there, but you don't know which one is the closer one to you or how many time it will take to pick you up. So I think that design wasn't so good for me, because I felt like I was missing something there that other application was giving me. And in the case of Uber too, when you request a ride, you will get like over here the information of the car, but you don't get the color, just the plate of the car. So, for example, in US, the plate always is in the back, so you can see it when the car is coming to you. So I think there are some things that they can improve on these mobile apps, but basically you can see that they also have a really clean websites where you can go. You can just see what are the services that they're offering. So I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Aida. So I think this has been a very productive session, and this concludes the lab. Thank you.